Broadcasting live from an Airstream somewhere in Tornado Alley, bringing you the people, places, and stories from the Panhandle to the Red River. This is your Only in Oklahoma show.
And welcome to the show. Today we're hopping on the train and headed to the OKC Railway Museum. And later on in the show, are we getting a new arena in OKC? I'm Brett.
And I am Harley.
Welcome back, Harley.
So I did make a recent revisit to Medicine Park, Oklahoma.
Yes, you did tell me a little bit about it.
One of my daughters was in town, wanted to go to the Parallel Forest.
Mm-hmm.
So we went down there and ended up having dinner at the old plantation.
It's not old anymore.
Dude, their food's getting better.
You know, we're kind of like a proud papa, aren't we?
Of Medicine Park?
We're watching our 200-year-old daughter grow up.
Dude, I'm going to say when we first started this gig,
I tell you,
Medicine Park, you couldn't get a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning in Medicine Park.
You couldn't get shot at if you wanted to down there. And that used to be a town full of bandits and harlots and everything else. Now it's a town full of millionaires and chicken and gravy.
Chicken and gravy.
Well, I mean, I was trying to think of some other stuff. They've got everything.
They do. So while I was just walking through the parking lot of the old plantation restaurant,
yeah,
I saw multiple vehicles from Alabama, from Missouri, from Texas, from New York.
New York City?
Yeah, in the parking on a Monday night in the parking lot of the old plantation restaurant.
In the 30s, if you saw a tag from New York City, you knew there was some stuff going on in an underground tunnel.
But when you're talking about travel and tourism on Monday night, there was nothing else. There wasn't any events happening.
No good reason
for people from New York to be in Medicine Park. I'm going to say they listened to an episode of the show and they came down to check it out.
I think so, and I think a lot of people listened to an episode of the show, and now it's Boomtown, USA. How many magazines has it been in?
All of them?
All of them.
Yeah. Any town, any magazine that has the word town,
travel,
city, travel,
medicine.
Yeah, medicine.
Park.
It's been on the cover of in the past year or so.
Did you see we're in the latest magazine? What's the magazine? Water. Yeah, they're everywhere. So, but congratulations to Medicine Park. We talk about every time we get a chance to talk about Medicine Park, which is rare because there for a while we practically lived there.
Mm-hmm. 7
years. That's how long Brad Pitt was in Tibet. Remember the movie 7 Years in Tibet?
Uh-huh.
They've been on a freaking what do you call it? They've been on a freaking spirit quest, a tear.
So one of the things that we have never discussed on the show that I think they need to figure something out about, they have a train trestle sitting in a field.
Yeah, use it. Figure out a way to use it.
And they haven't done anything with it yet.
Yeah.
But I
integrate that.
I feel like it has to. It's
right.
Been there forever.
And there's a perfect place to go to if you need tips or you need trestle tricks.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Railroad Museum in Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, this is a place where you got to take your boys.
Yeah.
We've talked about there's third size replica of trains, and you could take a train ride through the mountains.
Yep.
Those are all great things. Like that's a fun time. But these are full-sized, fully functional trains. You could take a 40-minute train ride.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
In an old steam engine. I promise your kids would love it.
Oh, I promise their dad would love it.
True. And honestly, I think it's just a really good family fun attraction.
Absolutely.
The story of the museum, though, starts in a really unique way. Originally, the museum started as the Central Oklahoma Rail Fan Club in the 70s.
I have a friend I grew up with who I think he was in the Rail Fan Club. He actually had a model train that basically he slept underneath it. His entire room was nothing but this model train, and he had custom built this canopy where his train was, and he would sleep underneath. And we're talking about a grown-ass man that did this. I'm 98.9% sure that he was a Rail Fan Club member. If he didn't have like a Burlington Northern tattoo on his lower back. I mean, seriously, or Santa Fe or something.
Apparently, though, in the 70s, they joined the National Railway Historical Society as the Central Oklahoma chapter. And the whole time, they're collecting old equipment and artifacts. And they had a lot of their members were part of the railroad community.
Yeah.
They worked on trains. They drove trains. Their efforts kind of laid the foundation for the museum as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
They built relationships with the railroads like Union Pacific, and they gathered seed money for the museum. In 1997, plans for the museum they started to pick up, and the chapter made an agreement with the Central Oklahoma Parking and Transportation Authority to use an old Missouri, Kansas, Texas track between Northeast 16th and Northeast 36th Street in Oklahoma City.
Something that I hope, you look at all these advancements in technology. As a kid, I remember I would go to my great aunt Evelyn's house, and it's a core memory for me, and it's kind of cheesy, but when I hear a train, because I don't live too far from a train in Moore, I kind of close my eyes, and it reminds me of being at my aunt's house, and the train you can almost set a timer for when the train would come by, and remember hearing that obviously it wasn't a steam engine or anything like that, but hearing that train horn go by, there's something pure about that memory.
I think there's a lot. I really feel bad for the kids that were born after cell phones became ubiquitous.
Right.
Because I have so many memories of
walking
railroad tracks, or sitting by the railroad tracks throwing rocks.
Putting pennies on the railroad tracks. My great aunt would take in, wherever you are, Aunt Evelyn, I miss you terribly. We would walk the tracks, and this wasn't a short jog. This jog. This was a quarter mile through the brush and the woods to put pennies on the tracks. We'd go home, have some lunch. I'd play for a while, and then at about dusk, close to dusk, we would go get the pennies off the track. Those are such sweet memories. Like you said, man, kids are born after the technology boom. They don't have any idea what they're missing, man.
So when I was a kid, I must have been 9 or 10 years old. There was a train that was between, I had to cross the tracks to get to school.
Yeah.
I'd walk past the tracks. And one time there was a train stopped there, stopped. And I'm just standing here and I'm like, I could climb right up this ladder and get on this train and go wherever it's going. And so I had made a plan that I was just going to take off. But I didn't do it right then because I didn't have any supplies. Mm-hmm. So I started packing a backpack with stupid stuff like peanut butter and crackers.
Yeah.
And a candle. And I'd have all this stuff in my backpack, and I'd sit next to that railroad track waiting for the train to stop again so I could climb up the ladder and just go.
Were you never afraid you were going to run into, Boxcar Willie or something like that?
Thought never crossed my mind.
I do remember walking the track, and, we're 80s kids, and Stand By Me was a big thing. I always knew I was going to find the dead body because train tracks seemed dangerous, and I was always told, stay away from the tracks. Don't go near the tracks. The train will suck you in. You know what I mean? So there was all these little, not that it can't happen, but it's not like a subway train where, there's a lot of things that have to happen intentionally for you to be crushed by a train. But there was all these little, and when I'd get close to the train tracks, especially in my neighborhood, not with my Aunt Evelyn, it was always a taboo thing, ooh, we're by the tracks, don't tell anybody. The whole train phenomenon, I'm not anywhere near being a super fan of trains. It's a cool museum. I think the kids would love it. I know, again, it ignites that core memory about going to the train tracks for me. So I'm all over that.
So getting back to the museum start, so the Transportation Authority allowed them to restore this piece of track and allowed them to hold demonstrations for their equipment on this stretch of railroad tracks. Yeah. In 1999, they were able to purchase a small plot of land near those tracks, or on those tracks, which is where the museum is at today. Mm-hmm. And they cleared the property. They helped build the museum, which opened its doors in 2000. We already touched on it a little bit, but this is a perfect place to take train enthusiasts. But I really think kids, get super excited just being near
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
the trains.
Yeah.
So they have steam engine trains, like authentic steam engine trains. They have train rides that run on a regular basis where you can ride the train. It's a 40-minute trip. They have air-conditioned versions. They have open-air versions. So there are a lot of options. But at the museum, they have a playground. They've got the museum, which is full of equipment. They've got some really things that I find neat, like the high rail trucks.
Oh, yeah.
Like the trucks that can drive onto the railroad tracks.
Oh.
They have some old hand cars that have been donated.
That'll make a man out of you.
Dude, like that was a dream of mine when I was a little kid.
I remember watching, I think it was Laurel and Hardy. There was an episode of a short film of Laurel and Hardy where they basically were on the train tracks most of the episode or most of the movie, and they used that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that was just so cool.
They have an item which I think would be better than the hand car. They have something called the Frisco Velocipede, which is a hand cart or powered by your hands and feet, and it was used by rail maintenance workers like in the 1880s.
Really?
But the whole thing only weighs 140 pounds.
Wow.
Whereas those rail cars look like they weigh a ton. This thing's 140 pounds, so you're not moving that much additional weight.
Right. I would definitely. I could see me and you doing that hand car thing.
Easy. Yeah, for about 20 minutes.
Hey, it can't be any worse than you and I trying to maneuver a canoe at the same time. We're either going to go forward or we're not going anywhere.
Yes. They also have like an old Frisco caboose, which is currently being renovated. It's an educational experience.
Right. Heaven forbid.
But there's a lot that goes into the railway system that shaped Oklahoma and the nation overall. And a lot of it just gets kind of
pushed to the side because it doesn't have a Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, brushed under the rug, like, whatever.
Here's the problem, and it's not a problem. And I'm not taking any shots at anyone that homeschools. But this feels, I think a lot of people go, oh, this sounds like something in the homeschool kids movie. Well, our generation, we would have accused the homeschool kids of being into this kind of stuff. I think it's important, culturally significant, for your kids to understand or have some depth of knowledge of what it was like before you plugged in, and tuned out.
So the thing that stands out to me is there's so little left of history that you can see function.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not going to see a lot of things historical stuff that actually you can see the way that it worked then.
Mm-hmm.
But these steam engines have been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just think like skyscrapers just appear. You know, it's not like it used to be where you'd have the picture of the construction workers sitting on an I-beam eating a sandwich. You know what I mean? The visual of industry has shifted quite a bit. If it's not a technological advance, and it's not something we can easily access or plug into or download, what am I looking for? They're just not I just feel like this generation's going to hell in a handbag, and they don't even know who's making the bag.
Yeah, I can see that, but I think that's a little off topic for me.
Probably.
I'm looking at it like, some of these steam engines have been around since the 1880s. That's 150 years.
150 years, yeah.
When you're talking 150 years, how many generations of family do you have that goes back 150 years?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could sit in the seat that your great-great-great-granddad sat in when he came here from wherever he came back east.
I will tell you this, and I'm only using this as an example. It's not Oklahoma related, but I did take a tour over the weekend, and they took us to where Oswald was apprehended and where this and that in his house, and sitting on this trolley that's probably 50 years old, listening to the history. You know what I mean? There's something that happens when you sit in that chair, when you get it behind that steering wheel, I look at an old car going down the street that's not trashed out, and I go, man, if that car could tell, you know what I mean? That's just, I think that's just the way we are. If that car could tell stories, I bet there's been a dead body in that trunk. There's something, history just kind of, it breathes, but you got to be there for it.
And you got to listen to it.
You got to listen to it.
And the nice thing about this museum, dude, when they started, like I said, the year 2000, they started, they had one operational locomotive, and they were only able to take 350 passengers per year.
Wow.
In 2019, they had almost 40,000 visitors and 4 operational trains, and they have more in the works.
I think that's you can easily see programs like this, and I hope it doesn't happen, but within the next 20 or 30 years, to where things like this just aren't around anymore.
I think it's getting more and more to the point where fewer people are alive.
Yeah.
That were involved with it.
Yeah.
And
are we the last generation for that?
No, because we still have trains running today. So
well, I know, but in terms of when you think of what your children's history lessons will be, what will they tell? Their first iPhone? You know what I mean? You think about things that are historically significant in the realm of technology or industry. I feel like we're the last bastion.
There are a lot of things that we see differently, just because we knew a world without instantaneous access to the entire world.
Sad.
It is.
It is sad.
Kids need to be bored.
Yeah, be bored.
I'm sorry. No. Some of my best memories from my childhood involved me sitting in a ravine and throwing dirt clods at some make-believe monster.
Yes. Or looking for crawdads, or shooting a slingshot at Dr. Pepper cans.
Yeah. And most kids, you couldn't pay them to do that now.
I was driving through a neighborhood, I don't know where it was, I think it was a neighborhood adjacent to mine, in a suburban area where every other kid has everybody's got a cell phone now. Let's be realistic. Even I've seen homeless people walking around trying to find a signal. But kids playing in the yard, playing ball across the street, pausing for cars to go by. Like, it's out there.
It's not as common, though.
It's not as common.
And it's definitely something that we're going to regret as a society.
You know what I don't see either? And we're getting off topic, but
we are.
A lot of people, you go into Walmart, you don't see a lot of people buying bicycles.
No, you don't. And when you do, most kids they've got to take it to the park, and they have to ride in the designated
with the helmet and the thing. Dude, listen,
you and I, there was no piece of property that was wooded within 4 miles of our houses that we didn't set up ramps on.
Right.
And yeah,
but again, back to this, a perfect opportunity. Take your kids.
It's free, dude.
It's free.
Admission is free.
Come on.
They do accept donations. If you want to ride the train, there's a fee. But
that's
getting into the museum...
Well, that's the thing. That's how they grease the gears for stuff like that. Donations, private donations, train rides, bake sale. There's a lot of stuff just like this around Oklahoma that survive solely on the kindness of you.
For sure. As far as the museum itself, this perfect place for birthdays or parties.
Yeah.
They have their own events. They've got a Halloween train, which is very popular.
Yeah.
They've got their Polar Express during the holiday season.
It sells out every time.
It sells out every time and early. So if you are, and as far as their actual schedule of train rides, it's a little all over the place when it's, not the holiday events, special holiday events. So I'm going to recommend that you check out their website, but they're right there on 3400 Northeast Grand in Oklahoma City. They're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you want more information or want to know when the train rides are, it's OklahomaRailwayMuseum.org.
Well, coming up after the break, it was no surprise, but we are getting a new arena in OKC.
I'm Raven Rollins, and this is my Southern True Crime podcast where I discuss cases from my former hometown. Ada, Oklahoma paints itself as an average community, but its history of murder and corruption runs deeper than any story has ever told. You'll hear plenty of special guests, including authors and experts in their fields, who visit with me on each episode, as well as other cases in the southern states. With notorious and unknown cases alike, every victim sees the light on my show. This is Sirens, a true crime podcast.
Headline from KOCO, Oklahoma City Council approved a new downtown arena. What happens now?
Well, you know, first of all, let me start by saying congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder for making it to the semifinals and coming literally down to the wire, losing by 1 point. I think that's kind of the warning shot that, hey, Oklahoma City's still in the hunt as a big league city. Because I think there was a lot of questions as to whether or not, what are we building this arena for? Can we, do we have the team that can support this and that? Is the fan base there? And I think we're proving that maybe, just maybe, it can happen. I'm just interested to see how the pieces tumble.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces in this one. So the council members approved the plans to build the new arena across the street from the Paycom Center, which is the current home of the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I called it.
Where the Cox Convention Center sits now. And the location has been decided, apparently, but there are some questions that still remain. Now, the Cox Convention Center is currently the home of Prairie Surf, a film production complex.
I saw this, if we can go back, if you look over here on this wall, I've got my JW Racing 77, 6 degrees of separation. And over here is where I started the conspiracy theory that when people were asking, where do you think, because they were asking me, where do you think they're going to put the new arena? I said, well, we talked about Prairie Surf Studios defunking. And I said, hang on.
Yeah.
And I said, here's what's going to happen. They're like, well, they could build their arena down by Okana. I was like, no, they're not going to do that. They're going to absorb Prairie Surf Studios, also known as Cox, also known as the Myriad, and they're going to take up that whole area. Watch. It's happening.
Okay, so just to flash back a little trip down memory lane.
Okay.
In December, the Oklahoma City voters approved a 1-cent sales tax to pay for the new arena, which is going to cost a minimum of $900 million.
We won't say billion because it sounds bigger than 900 million.
Yes. The Oklahoma City Thunder is going to contribute $50 million to that price tag. They're making out like bandits on this deal. I'm sorry.
It's a steal.
The goal is to be done with construction by 2029, so 5 years.
I hate it. You know what I don't like about getting older? Is that you start counting, and I think having small children is a bigger contributing factor to this. When I start scheduling the next Batman movie with my age, I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to be 49 years old. When I was young, I didn't care. But now you throw out numbers like 2029. I'm like, I'll be 51. I don't even want to think about it. But now I have to. Thanks.
So Mayor David Holt said that the idea that the Paycom Center is going to become potentially unnecessary, his response to that was, there's no reason to make that decision today. Like,
okay, come on, we're not dumb.
And the Thunder are going to play in the Paycom until the new arena's done.
It'll have like temporary walls up. Like you can tell, like they're just paper mache, just waiting to for the game to be over. So can go. Yeah, I get it. We know exactly what's happening here. You're going to tear down the day after the last game or the whatever season. You're mowing it down.
Yeah, I just don't know what they're going to do. It's just going to be a parking lot?
Yeah, I don't know. Or okay. I don't know what and maybe we can research this and come back at a later time, like at 2027. God, it's a long ways away, 2029. Anyway, I don't know what the average NBA stadium is at 900. It's got to be one of the smaller ones for the OKC market. I don't know. I'm guessing it's going to. When you look at it, the Myriad's not that big. I'm calling it the Myriad. You always have. if you take them both out plus parking, I think it takes up a couple city blocks. Three city blocks. Right there, smack dab in the middle.
Well, maybe they'll release some artist renditions soon.
When are we supposed to get the Tower of Terror?
I have no idea. I think they approved it. Yeah, I have no idea on that one. I love the name though, Tower of Terror. The Oklahoma City Tower of Terror.
OKC's growing up. I don't know how I feel about it. You know what I mean?
I feel like we're never going to review the restaurant at the top of the Tower of Terror.
Probably not.
It's never going to happen. Like, I'm sorry, even if we DoorDash it and have them deliver it to the bottom floor, by the time it gets down there, the food's going to be cold.
Then we can just bitch about the food being cold.
Like, yeah.
And undercooked.
I guess they don't have a hot enough oven in the
I don't know
700th floor of this building.
I mean, what's next? I don't know. Terrorist invade a Christmas party? I'm not sure. But anyway, I've got a lot of opinions. It is growing up down there. Okana is looking more like something now. I mean, things are happening. Things are moving. Things are shaking.
We'll include a link to KOCO's website so you can keep track of all of the happenings in downtown Oklahoma City. So we do have some feedback from one of Brett's favorite people.
No.
The dossier continues.
Yeah.
JW Racing 77 commented on our Phoenix Rising episode.
Oh, really?
He did. He said, "This sounds like a very nice place to visit!" ! He has not addressed anything that you have said.
He's so vague.
He did not provide any additional details, unless him liking a cabin on a hill helps you with your investigation.
Can I ask, when people put exclamation points in text, is that excitement? Is it shouting? What are we getting here? What kind of energy are we getting from Ghostface here?
I don't know. I can't help you, man. I'm not as concerned. I appreciate that JW Racing listens to the show and regularly makes comments.
I feel like your deathbed confession will be to the tune of, "Those fish really were as big as the kayak, Brett." And I'm JW Racing 77.
Dude, if there were fish as big as the kayak in the Illinois River, I would never go near it.
Yes, you would.
No, I wouldn't.
Just to goat my ass. This is all it's been. It's been a way to prove to me that I'm insane and I'm a wuss. So far, I'm insane. Wuss. I'm a wuss. Well, listen, if you've got feedback for us, you want to tell us what you think, spill the tea on downtown OKC, it's easy to do. Hit us up at OnlyinOKShow at gmail.com. We're everywhere. Check us out. If you have an internet connection, you can find us right here. New episodes every week. It's been the OnlyinOK Show. I'm Brett.
And I'm Harley, and we're out of here.
Peace. Come on, ride that train and ride it. It's a choo-choo. I'm about to blow your intro out of the water. 3, 2, 1. And welcome to the show. All right. You ready? We're about to take the last train to Clarksville. Oklahoma Rail Museum, OKC. Later in the show, a new arena in downtown. Brought to you by 3, 2, 1. And welcome to the show. Today we're hopping on the train and headed to OKC to the Railway Museum. We haven't start that over. 3, 2, 1. And welcome to the show. Today we're hopping on the train and headed to the Railway Museum in OKC. And later in the show, a new arena in downtown OKC. Start over, you son bitch. 3, 2, 1. And welcome to the show. Today we're headed to downtown OKC on a train headed to nowhere. 3, 2, 1.